My name is Barbara Jardine, and I will be discussing my support for the legality of medical marijuana use at the federal level. To do this, I will be discussing the positive health and economic effects that this will have on Americans, as well as refute claims that do not support this change in legislation. Now, when looking at health effects, it's very important to compare the use of medical marijuana versus prescription drugs. Now, for the treatment of neuropathy, we tend to use opioid painkillers as our prescription drug of choice. But when you compare the two side by side, it's very obvious that medical marijuana has the upper hand. For example, it's very difficult to become addicted to medical marijuana, whereas these opioid painkillers tend to have the highest rate of addiction in the country. In addition to these very high rates of addiction, we also see a very high rate of lethal overdose. Now, this can be very costly as taxpayer money goes towards these emergency services when people have these overdoses. Now, when you compare that to medical marijuana, where there's almost little to no evidence of any sort of lethal overdose, it becomes clear that if we were to make medical marijuana legal, we would see a decrease in the amount of medical spending, thus increasing our money in the economy. Now, opponents of legalizing medical marijuana will often argue that legalizing it for medicinal purposes will open the floodgates, thus making recreational marijuana legal as well. Now, this is incorrect, because the legalization of medicinal marijuana often stems from progressive thinking, not so much the drug itself. Medical marijuana would contain trace amounts of THC, which is a component that recreational marijuana uses to get high. If there is little to no THC present, it should not provoke the use of recreational marijuana. Another popular opposing opinion is that there's simply not enough data to suggest that medical marijuana is safe. However, cannabis has had a long history of medicinal purposes. The only reason why it wasn't introduced into the United States was because of hypodermic needles and the emergence of opioids such as morphine and codeine. However, based on the evidence provided, I stand by my assertion to support the legality of medical marijuana use.